What if you met a woman with a stunning figure, an exceptional face, elegant manners, and a soft-spoken demeanor? A woman seen as an angel in the eyes of many, but anyone who comes into contact with her suddenly meets an untimely death. Her two husbands both died under mysterious circumstances. Family members have had accidents, and even the household staff couldn't escape their unfortunate fate. In other words, even those closest to her couldn't escape the deadly grip of this beautiful woman. The woman we are talking about is Yoon Jin Sook. She was born in 1976 in Gangwon Province, South Korea. Yoon Jin Sook's family was an ordinary local family with 4 children. She was the second child, with an older brother, a younger brother, and a younger sister. Her parents worked hard to raise their 4 children to become upstanding adults. Among the siblings, Yoon Jin Sook stood out with her fair skin and beautiful face. From a young age, she had an exceptional appearance that drew special attention from everyone. But despite her gentle appearance, she was actually a troubled child. Not only was she neglectful of her studies, but she also had a habit of stealing and frequently caused conflicts with her peers. It wasn't until she entered high school that Yoon Jin Sook started to focus more on her studies and stopped causing trouble, leading to a more stable academic path. As she grew older, she began to pay more attention to her appearance. Gradually, she became a shopping addict, always filling her closet with new dresses. Buying new things made her feel joyful and happy. From high school onward, Yoon Jin Sook became more daring. One day, she secretly mixed sleeping pills into a classmate's food, waited until they fell asleep, and then stole their credit card to purchase luxurious items she desired. After this incident was discovered by the school, Yoon Jin Sook was expelled for her behavior, which negatively influenced other students. A few years later, her family transferred her to a high school in Seoul so she could continue her education. At the age of 21, Yoon Jin Sook graduated from high school and became an insurance consultant. That same year, she met her future husband, Lee. Lee was the same age as Yoon Jin Sook, young and healthy, working as a mover for a company in Seoul. However, he had some mental health issues and occasionally needed to take medication. But Yoon Jin Sook didn't care about that. The two got along well and quickly developed a romantic relationship. Yoon Jin Sook decided to leave her home, move to Seoul, and start living with her boyfriend. Less than a year later, Yoon Jin Sook became pregnant and they got married. Both of them had little education and their earnings were modest. To make matters worse, Yoon Jin Sook couldn't control her shopping urges. Married life wasn't as happy as she had imagined, with financial struggles, material needs, and bills piling up. To satisfy her high consumption habits, she would often find excuses to visit her parents and steal her mother's savings to spend on herself. That same year, her father passed away. While her family was deeply saddened by his death, Yoon Jin Sook showed no concern. Instead of mourning, she secretly planned to take her father's credit card to continue her spending. Back in Yoon Jin Sook's small family, the couple relied solely on Lee's income to get by. When their daughter was born, they faced additional expenses for the baby. Yoon Jin Sook frequently had financial problems, leading to constant arguments with her husband, which made their home chaotic and their situation even more unstable. This tumultuous marriage dragged on for 2 years. Then, an event occurred that completely altered the course of her life. In February 2000, their daughter was about to turn 3. As with all young children, she was full of energy and curiosity. One day, while her parents were not at home, the little girl climbed onto a table and accidentally fell, hitting her head on the floor and crying out loudly. By the time her parents returned, they found her unconscious on the floor. They rushed her to the hospital, but sadly, having missed the critical window for treatment, the child passed away due to a traumatic brain injury. This event dealt a severe blow to Yoon Jin Sook. According to her later account, after her daughter's death, Yoon Jin Sook developed depression and required psychiatric treatment, including medication. However, the tragic accident also brought the couple a substantial insurance payout. Without the responsibility of raising their daughter, some of the pressure in Yoon Jin Sook's life eased. She returned to her old habits, frequently going out shopping. Since getting married, she had never experienced such a carefree life. As she gently stroked the luxury handbag in her hand and glanced at her husband beside her, a twisted idea suddenly crossed her mind. In the following month, Yoon Jin Sook exploited her position to take out multiple accident insurance policies for her husband Lee, eventually securing 4 personal accident insurances in his name. A malicious plan was beginning to take shape in her mind. In front of her husband, she continued to play the role of the dutiful wife, attentively caring for his daily needs while waiting for the right moment. That day was a Saturday. Since it was the weekend, neither of them had to work. On that day, while preparing her husband's medication, she began to carry out her sinister intentions. There were many types of medication in their home, as both she and her husband suffered from various ailments. Yoon Jin Sook felt that the opportunity had arrived. She switched her husband's antipsychotic medication with the antidepressants she was taking and increased the dosage. At that moment, Lee had no reason to suspect anything. Not long after, the medication began to take effect. Lee felt his mind becoming foggy, dizziness set in, and his body grew weak and drowsy. He could no longer clearly understand what his wife was saying. Yoon Jin Sook stood beside her husband near the staircase, while Lee was in a dazed state, unaware of what was happening. Suddenly, Yoon Jin Sook reached out and pushed Lee down the stairs. His head hit the ground hard. Afterward, she called an ambulance and pretended to have no involvement in the incident. Upon diagnosis, it was found that Lee had suffered a traumatic brain injury, similar to what their daughter had experienced. However, Lee was fortunate to have good physical strength from years of manual labor, and after a few days of bed rest, he returned to normal. When the incident occurred, Lee's mind was foggy, and he couldn't clearly remember what had happened. Yoon Jin Sook feigned concern and consoled him, telling her husband that she had been doing housework when she heard a noise, and when she rushed out, she found him already on the ground. She repeatedly apologized. Seeing his wife so distressed, Lee couldn't help but feel sympathetic and ended up comforting her instead. As a result, Yoon Jin Sook's plan failed. She didn't receive the insurance money she had hoped for, and life returned to normal for the couple. But deep down, Yoon Jin Sook was not ready to give up on her sinister intentions. Less than a month later, she attempted her crime a second time. Yoon Jin Sook repeated her previous tactic, once again drugging her husband and pushing him down the stairs, causing a second traumatic brain injury. This time, the injury was more severe than before. Her scheme finally succeeded. Due to her husband's accident, Yoon Jin Sook received 340,000 won in insurance compensation, equivalent to about 260 USD. Although the amount was not substantial, it made Yoon Jin Sook realize she had found a new source of income. She believed she could continue using this method to make money. Due to her excessive spending, the 340,000 won from the insurance quickly disappeared. She continued to use sweet words to maintain the image of a gentle wife, all while waiting for another opportunity to strike. At that time in South Korea, the highest insurance payout was for death, and the second highest was for loss of vision. Having worked in the insurance industry for many years, Yoon Jin Sook was well versed in the internal rules. To earn more money, she devised yet another malicious plan. One evening in mid-May, before going to bed, Yoon Jin Sook gave her husband medication that gradually caused him to lose consciousness. After confirming that he was asleep, she took a needle, used her hand to open his right eyelid, and forcefully stabbed it down. Though Lee was in a deep sleep, the pain in his eye gradually woke him up. He soon realized that he could no longer see out of his right eye. Once again, Yoon Jin Sook pretended to be unaware, expressing concern and quickly pouring tea for her husband to calm him down before urgently taking him to see a doctor. The examination revealed that the cause of the blindness was corneal damage. Besides the possibility of injury from a foreign object, other potential causes included mechanical damage from corneal disease, eye infection, or eye strain from excessive use of electronic devices. All these factors could lead to corneal damage. Thus, Yoon Jin Sook successfully deceived both her husband and the insurance company once again. As a result of this incident, she received a significant insurance payout. Through her husband's various accidents, Yoon Jin Sook accumulated a substantial amount of insurance money. She began to see this as a way to make a living. After her husband lost his vision, he became heavily dependent on her for his daily activities. The two were almost inseparable and stayed at home for the next year and a half. However, Yoon Jin Sook continued to exploit her husband's trust, using various methods to inflict injuries on him. Before each act, she would give her husband antidepressants, which weakened his mental state. Then she would stab him in the abdomen and other areas with a knife. Afterward, she pretended these incidents were accidents to collect insurance money. Due to Lee's genuine mental health issues, coupled with Yoon Jin Sook's excellent acting skills, everyone believed that her husband had harmed himself due to depression and that she was powerless to stop him. Lee, affected by the medication, couldn't clearly remember the events and fully trusted his wife, even feeling touched by her concern for his safety and the effort she put into caring for him. In January 2002, Yoon Jin Sook once again injured her husband, causing a perforated small intestine and internal bleeding, requiring 3 weeks of hospitalization. Soon after being discharged, she harmed him again, leading to more intestinal perforations. Not wanting to bear the high medical costs, she quickly devised a solution. While her husband was in the hospital, she befriended a woman in the same ward and spiked the woman's strawberries with medication. Shortly after, the woman fell asleep, and Yoon Jin Sook stole her credit card, using it to pay off her husband's medical bills. Just over a month later, due to the immense pain from his injuries, Lee passed away in the hospital. Over 2 years, Yoon Jin Sook had attacked him 10 times, receiving a total of 280 million Korean won, approximately 210,000 USD. She used this money to treat herself, getting hair treatments, skincare, and purchasing luxury items, living a lavish life of her own. At her husband's funeral, Yoon Jin Sook appeared utterly grief-stricken, crying alongside her husband's family, creating a scene of deep mourning. Yet, that very night, she went out to a bar and quickly found a new target. This was Lin, a 30-year-old former martial artist with an impressive and attractive physique. At the bar, Lin was immediately drawn to Yoon Jin Sook, a beautiful young woman, and fell in love with her at first sight, pursuing her without hesitation. To gain his trust, Yoon Jin Sook lied, claiming she had graduated from a prestigious university with a degree in education and was currently working as a kindergarten teacher. She also boasted that her family was very wealthy, with assets worth up to 10 billion won. She mentioned that her older brother was working at a military academy, and her younger brother was studying abroad in the United States. Shortly after they met, Yoon Jin Sook gifted Lin an SUV worth 32 million won, equivalent to 24,000 USD. Lin couldn't believe his luck. He had just gone to the bar for fun and ended up meeting a woman who was not only beautiful, but also wealthy, and she was interested in him. It seemed like a gift from above. The two quickly entered into a romantic relationship. In May 2002, just 3 months after her former husband's death, Yoon Jin Sook moved in with Lin. During this time, she concealed her past from her new lover, portraying herself as an elegant and wealthy woman. For the first year of their relationship, everything was peaceful. However, Yoon Jin Sook hadn't changed her habit of extravagant spending. The insurance money she had previously received was now nearly gone. Desperate for more money, Yoon Jin Sook began to eye Lin, her new lover, with a sinister intent. However, since they were only dating and not married, she wouldn't be able to claim any insurance money as she had hoped. After some careful consideration, Yoon Jin Sook devised a cruel plan. In November of that year, 6 months into their relationship, she used her old trick, giving Lin antidepressants. Even though he had once been an athlete, the medication made it difficult for Lin to stay alert. Taking advantage of his weakened state, Yoon Jin Sook pushed Lin to the ground, causing him to fracture his spine, which required 4 weeks of hospitalization. During that time, Yoon Jin Sook visited the hospital daily, meticulously preparing nutritious meals for Lin, which deeply touched him. Sensing the right moment had arrived, she suggested to Lin that they should get married so he would have someone to take care of him in the future. By this point, Lin had become completely captivated by Yoon Jin Sook's gentle demeanor, so he readily agreed without hesitation. He handed over his ID card to Yoon Jin Sook, trusting her completely. Wasting no time, she took his ID and immediately registered their marriage. With this, Yoon Jin Sook finally met the criteria to become the beneficiary of Lin's insurance. She then began purchasing insurance policies from various companies in Lin's name. Just 1 month after getting married, Yoon Jin Sook initiated her malicious plan. She gave Lin antidepressants, stabbed him in his right eye, causing blindness, and subsequently collected a large insurance payout. Over the next 3 months, she repeatedly inflicted burns on her husband, defrauding insurance companies, which led to Lin being hospitalized with severe injuries. He couldn't survive under her control and abuse. In February 2003, just 4 months into their marriage, Lin died from anaphylactic shock in the hospital. Yoon Jin Sook received a total of 388 million Korean won, approximately 290,000 USD, from 2 insurance companies. This was an enormous sum of money for Yoon Jin Sook. However, she was unaware that the series of accidents involving her loved ones had already raised suspicions about her. First, Lin had always been in good health and had no history of mental illness. Yet, less than 6 months after their marriage, he suddenly passed away. This naturally aroused suspicion within Lin's family. At this time, Yoon Jin Sook was 3 months pregnant. She played the role of a grieving widow, pleading with them to allow her to organize the funeral for her husband. She even vowed to take good care of the unborn child. Her apparent sincerity softened Lin's family, and they set aside their doubts. Since her second husband passed away so quickly, Yoon Jin Sook didn't receive as much money as she had hoped. 3 months later, in the 6th month of her pregnancy, she gave birth to a baby boy. Because he was born prematurely, the boy had weak health and needed frequent medical visits. However, Yoon Jin Sook remained unconcerned, spending nearly every day out enjoying herself. The insurance money from her late husband was completely spent within just a few months. After committing multiple crimes, Yoon Jin Sook's moral boundaries continued to deteriorate. She even began to harbor malicious intentions towards her own family. In July 2003, 6 months after Lin's death, Yoon Jin Sook started attacking her biological mother in an extremely cruel manner. On that day, she visited her mother with a pomegranate juice she had prepared, laced with a sufficient dose of antidepressants. Her mother, pleased by her daughter's visit, drank the juice without suspicion and soon fell asleep. Yoon Jin Sook then skillfully took out a syringe and injected it into her mother's right eye, causing a cataract and blindness. Following this incident, she moved back in with her mother under the pretext of taking care of her. She lived together with her mother, older brother, and younger brother. 4 months later, Yoon Jin Sook invited her older brother out for drinks. She took advantage of a moment when he wasn't paying attention to secretly spike his drink with drugs. This time, she directly poured hydrochloric acid into his eyes, causing corneal and mucous membrane damage, leading to complete blindness in both eyes and requiring him to stay in the hospital for more than 6 months. During those 6 months, perhaps out of fear that her actions would be exposed, Yoon Jin Sook secretly snuck into the hospital and attempted to inject bronchodilators and asthma medication into her brother's IV. However, a healthcare worker noticed something unusual and came to check, thwarting Yoon Jin Sook's plan in a humiliating failure. At this point, no one in the family had yet discovered Yoon Jin Sook's dark secrets. She continued to indulge in her carefree lifestyle. Even with the large insurance payouts she received, Yoon Jin Sook spent money rapidly. To satisfy her material desires, she decided to sell her apartment. She lied, saying, "I'm going to use the money from selling the house along with my savings to buy a new home in Seoul, and the whole family will move there together." In reality, she used all the money on herself. It's safe to say that out of 7 days a week, Yoon Jin Sook spent 6 of them shopping, partying, and spending money freely without a second thought. After half a year of treatment, her brother returned home, permanently blinded. He had no idea what kind of power Yoon Jin Sook held that allowed her to deceive the family with sweet words. She continued living with her blind mother, her brother, and, fortunately, her still healthy younger brother. As the moving day approached, the risk of her lies being exposed grew. Yoon Jin Sook lived each day in fear and anxiety, dreading the questions her family might ask about the move. By January 2005, with the moving day fast approaching and unable to lie any longer, she decided to take drastic measures against her own family. She prepared a pomegranate syrup for her mother, brother, and younger brother, laced with a large dose of medication, convincing them to drink it by claiming it was good for their eyes. After they drank it, all three collapsed. However, Yoon Jin Sook set fire to the carpet, attempting to burn the house down before fleeing. What the malicious woman didn't anticipate was that during the fire, her brother was awakened by the thick smoke. Although he was blind and couldn't see the situation clearly, he managed to find and wake up the rest of the family. Fortunately, they reacted in time, and all three survived, though they had to be hospitalized with severe burns. Following this incident, Yoon Jin Sook collected 204 million won, equivalent to 150,000 USD, in insurance money, a significant sum. After the apartment was destroyed by fire, Yoon Jin Sook had nowhere to go and was forced to seek help from a part-time housekeeper. Jung was a very kind-hearted person. When she heard that Yoon Jin Sook was without a home, she immediately offered her a room to stay in. However, since Jung's house was already occupied by her husband and two young children, she couldn't let Yoon stay for too long. Yoon Jin Sook promised to pay rent for the room and assured Jung that she would find another place to live as soon as possible, promising not to cause any trouble or inconvenience to Jung's family. However, once Yoon Jin Sook moved in, life for Jung's family became difficult. Yoon Jin Sook's promises turned out to be empty words. In reality, she was only concerned about herself and had no intention of moving out. She also failed to fulfill her promise of paying any rent. After a month, Jung could no longer tolerate the situation. She politely suggested that Yoon Jin Sook should move out. But upon hearing this, Yoon Jin Sook's face darkened immediately. She had never been treated like this before. Furious, she decided to take revenge. That very night, she put her plan into action. After Jung's family had fallen asleep, Yoon Jin Sook set their house on fire. The flames quickly spread, destroying the entire home. Jung and her two children were severely injured, and unfortunately, Jung's husband didn't survive the fire. But Yoon Jin Sook wasn't satisfied with that. Worried that Jung might report her for arson, she decided to silence her for good. 2 weeks after setting the fire, Yoon Jin Sook filled a plastic bottle with gasoline and placed it in a shopping bag. She sneaked into the hospital where Jung was being treated and set fire to the stairwell. Her intention was to burn down the entire hospital. Fortunately, someone in the hospital noticed the fire in time and managed to extinguish it, preventing any casualties or damage to the equipment. This time, Yoon Jin Sook wasn't lucky enough to escape justice. All of her actions were captured by the surveillance system. The South Korean police quickly identified and arrested her. When investigators first encountered her, they noticed her striking appearance, elegant demeanor, and polite manner of speaking. No one would have thought she was capable of such heinous acts. In front of the police, Yoon Jin Sook pretended to be devastated, recounting her experiences with great sorrow. She mentioned the early death of her daughter and claimed that after her daughter passed away, she developed depression and had to take medication daily to manage her condition. She said that sometimes she saw visions of her daughter in flames, which led to an obsession with fire. Recently, she explained, she had been missing her daughter terribly, and in a haze, she went to the hospital and started a fire, hoping her daughter would appear so she could be close to her. Yoon Jin Sook also claimed that her 3-year-old son was suffering from a rare illness and was being treated in the hospital. She pleaded with the police to let her go home to care for him. Surprisingly, the investigator in charge of the case was moved by her story. Since the fire at the hospital hadn't caused significant damage, Yoon Jin Sook was successfully released. In reality, Yoon Jin Sook had fabricated the entire story. Her son was indeed suffering from Kawasaki disease, a rare condition that affects the blood vessels and is most common in children under 5. Her son was being treated at a hospital, requiring costly medications and medical care. During her time at the hospital, Yoon Jin Sook deceived the roommate of another patient and used their credit card for her own expenses. After a long period of treatment, on April 1st, Yoon Jin Sook's son suddenly passed away at the hospital. 2 days later, the patient in the same room discovered that his credit card had been maxed out. He questioned his girlfriend, and she confronted Yoon Jin Sook, demanding that she repay the money. This immediately ignited Yoon Jin Sook's anger. The next day, Yoon Jin Sook gave the woman medication and inflicted an injury to her right eye. She then took the woman's credit card and used it to pay off all the medical expenses incurred during her son's hospitalization, totaling 9 million won, equivalent to about 6,800 USD. Yoon Jin Sook harbored resentment toward this woman. A few days later, she visited her under the pretense of being a concerned friend and committed several cruel acts, including injecting medication into her veins, causing a fever, and triggering 3 heart attacks. After committing numerous deceitful and cruel actions, someone finally began to question Yoon Jin Sook's behavior. Her younger brother noticed that something was terribly wrong with the family members around him. He went to the police and expressed his suspicions about his sister. He pointed out that everyone around Yoon Jin Sook seemed to be plagued by misfortune. Some were injured, and others had died. Both of her husbands had died in accidents. Within her family, one person was blind, another was severely burned. Even the household help's family had suffered. After hearing the brothers' account, the police recognized that something was seriously amiss. They immediately launched an investigation into Yoon Jin Sook. What they uncovered was shocking. Since 2000, Yoon Jin Sook had repeatedly attacked those around her, continuously using her relatives' names to claim compensation from various insurance companies, totaling up to 600 million Korean won, equivalent to about 460,000 USD. However, because she had no prior criminal record, appeared trustworthy, and maintained a good credit history, none of the companies suspected her of fraud. After a thorough investigation, the police officially arrested Yoon Jin Sook. Upon her arrest, they discovered that she was dating another man, who could potentially have been her next target. Family members were in disbelief when Yoon Jin Sook was apprehended. They never suspected that all the tragedies surrounding them were the work of one person. Reporters pursued her, asking why she had harmed her own family. Yoon Jin Sook became very angry, shouting and scolding the reporters. She yelled, "I don't even know why I acted that way." During police interrogations, Yoon Jin Sook confessed to most of the charges. When asked why she was so driven to accumulate money, she claimed to be a shopaholic. She said she needed a lot of money to buy the things she desired. However, those around her were skeptical of this explanation. The police conducted a drug test on her, but nothing was found. A psychiatric expert evaluated her case and concluded that she was fully aware of her actions when committing the crimes and was capable of facing criminal responsibility. Her displays of weakness and insanity were all an act. The purpose of pretending to have a severe mental illness was to seek a reduced sentence. Further investigation revealed that Yoon Jin Sook's true motivations were rooted in pride and an insatiable desire for money. She was highly focused on fulfilling her own desires. If she wanted something to eat, she had to have it. If she wanted something to buy, she would stop at nothing to get it. According to media reports, Yoon Jin Sook underwent a criminal psychiatric evaluation to assess her for antisocial personality disorder. This test, which was introduced in South Korea in 2005, was part of her examination. Yoon Jin Sook scored the maximum 40 points, surpassing even the scores of some of the most notorious serial killers. It's said that she was a born criminal. In October 2005, her case was brought to trial at the Seoul Central District Court in South Korea. Since antisocial personality disorder is considered a personality disorder rather than a mental illness, Yoon Jin Sook's defense of being unable to control her actions due to her psychological state was not accepted. Over the span of 5 years, she committed a series of crimes, including causing severe bodily harm, arson, and robbery, amounting to 24 counts across 10 different charges. Yoon Jin Sook was responsible for the deaths of 3 innocent people and caused permanent injuries to 2 family members. Despite these horrific crimes, she showed no remorse for her actions or the harm she caused her victims, and she adamantly refused to apologize. However, considering that she had once lost a daughter, had a documented history of psychiatric treatment, and her background in terms of education and employment, the court acknowledged that she might still have a chance for rehabilitation. On October 27th, the Seoul Central District Court delivered its verdict. Yoon Jin Sook was convicted on all 9 counts and sentenced to life imprisonment. A year later, the Supreme Court upheld this ruling. Yoon Jin Sook was transferred to Cheongju Women's Prison, the only women's prison in South Korea at the time. She will spend the rest of her life there. The case, once made public, shocked the entire nation. Many wanted to interview her to gain insight into her psychology during the crimes. However, Yoon Jin Sook consistently refused interviews, citing insomnia as the reason. Some people have even speculated that the death of Yoon Jin Sook's 3-year-old daughter, who supposedly died in an accident while home alone, might not have been as straightforward as it seemed. However, Yoon Jin Sook has avoided discussing this matter, leaving many questions about the incident unanswered. After the case concluded, Lin's sister, the sister of Yoon Jin Sook's second husband, went to the prison to ask her directly about her true thoughts when committing the crimes. But Yoon Jin Sook refused to meet with her. To this day, she remains in prison, living her life while refusing all visits or interviews, completely cutting off contact with the outside world. The truth behind Yoon Jin Sook's actions and her real psychological state might be something only she knows. What about you? What do you think about this woman and her true thoughts? Share your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the Crime Documentary Files channel to stay updated on the most classic cases.